your flesh and blood.
Welcome to Tell Me Your Story, new paradigms for a new world where we're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We are here 9 times a week, Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m., streaming live at all those times at richarddugan.com. We are on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, as well as YouTube, where you can watch these conversations. I hope that you will take time to subscribe and click notifications so that when a new conversation is posted, you'll be notified and you'll be able to tune in, listen in, and learn, be entertained and inspired. A reminder that Choices, which is my book, 5 Steps for Life, it's available on Amazon.com in paperback, hardcover, and Kindle with Audible, soon to be released. We also ask that if you can support the work that we are doing financially, we do have a PayPal account. It is there for your security as well as ours. And when they ask for an email address to whom you're sending, please go to richard@richarddugan.com. That's the email address. If you go to richarddugan.com, there is also a link directly to PayPal so that you can send us whatever support you can. And we thank you to those who have helped and to those who will help. We also ask that you take time during this decade of perfect vision, the 2020s, to go within to that quiet, peaceful, calm, still place and listen to that still, small voice. And with that, we now take you to our very special interview and guest here on Tell Me Your Story. And welcome to Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. I'm Richard Dugan, and it's a pleasure always to come your way. And today we have a returning guest, and her name is Julie Wignall. And she has this thing about fireflies. Extraordinaryfireflies.com is the website. And hey, Julie, thanks for coming back on. I'm looking forward to this conversation because I think it plays into what my wife and I are going through in terms of our move to our new home, but just in general for everybody. And so I'm glad you're here to talk about this.
Thanks, Richard. It's good to see you.
Well, good to see you too. And of course, extraordinaryfireflies.com is your website where people can find out more about you and the work you're doing. But our conversation today, ladies and gentlemen, it has to do, you've heard of the phrase, the question, I guess, is your cup half full or is it half empty? Well, we're going to talk about that, but from a little different perspective. And that is talking about how to empty your cup. It isn't really about what it's filled with, although I throw that in there. So I said, well, if my cup is half full, okay, maybe, I don't know, maybe a little Irish cream would be good, or something really tasty, but we're talking about emptying your cup. And I will tell you that our cup these days has been the shape of a dwelling space. And we've been trying to empty it like you would not believe. And it seems like the more we take out, it's like it duplicates itself in a house, It's really kind of interesting. Talk to us a little bit about, first, what is the cup? Define that for us. What is the cup?
Well, this comes from a Zen story of someone who knows everything but wants to learn more. He goes to a great Zen master, and the two sit across from each other at a table, and the Zen master begins pouring tea for the gentleman that has come to learn more from him. And the guy wants to impress the master, and he keeps telling him everything he knows. I already know this, and I know this, and I know this. And he's just spilling this out. And the Zen master is sitting very quietly, pouring the tea, pouring the tea, pouring the tea, until the tea is now overflowing the cup. And the man who's come to see him says, how can you do this? You're spilling this. You're spilling this everywhere. And the master says to him, this is you. How can I help to give you new information if your cup is already full? And the concept is we get to this point in our lives where we think we know everything. You're going through this right now. in terms of moving. You go, I know how much time it's going to take me to move. And as you're emptying things, as you're packing things, you go, wait a minute, there's more, there's more, there's more, there's more. And that's what life is. No matter what it is, we come to conclusions. We come to this knowledge that we say, well, we already know everything. There's nothing more to learn. And when we do that, our cup is now overflowing, and we're missing opportunities. We're getting stuck. We're missing the chance to learn new things. We're missing the chance to see the world from different angles. This is something that, in terms of businesses are pretty good at hiring consultants because they want to see people come in from an outside perspective that has a new view of what their issues are, what their problems are. Um, this was behind my story when I worked in the field of zoos and aquariums, and I was working with a lot of nonprofit conservation organizations, and they kept telling me businesses are terrible and they're greedy, and that is the problem with everything environmentally. And I went, business, but it's people. It's people and how they run their businesses. And I thought, what if I went and worked with them? How would that work? And that's exactly what I did. I went to work with a billionaire and found how many different ways I could actually impact the environment in a positive way. And it's like, wait a minute, businesses aren't the enemy. Maybe corporate greed is the enemy, but that comes from people. That doesn't come from corporations. So it's that concept of emptying your cup. Most people, when they say they're stuck, Richard, it's because they haven't emptied their cup. They haven't allowed themselves space
Mm.
to be open to new solutions, new opportunities. I find this, I learned so much working with business, and I ran back to these organizations and said, there's a different way. There's a no, we don't need to know that because we know everything. We know everything that there is to know. So we don't want to waste money on bringing in consultants or coaches or people who are going to encourage us to think in different ways. Those, however, that do, they say, yeah, we need to look at this differently. They open themselves up to new opportunities, more money, more opportunities to do things to create the change that they're trying to create in the first place.
Mm.
It was very interesting. I thought about you and in this whole conversation, this past weekend. I had the opportunity to attend an event with a lot of young people in their early 20s who were gung ho in terms of what's going on politically and the environment. And as I walked in the door, a young woman stopped me. And she said, I just need you to know. And she just spewed all of her beliefs. And it's like, okay. Because she knew everything. Now, this woman, Richard, was standing there and she had a booth. She was selling things. Um, and this was going to make the world better through her sales. And she's giving me this long lecture on how horrible capitalism is. And she's telling me all about it because she knows everything. And I just said to her, so how's business? It's not very good. She said, well, why do you think that is? I don't know. I can't get people to buy things, and there was anger there. But, it's not just emptying your cup. It's when we want people to empty their cup to allow a little bit of space. It's up to us to become insatiably curious. How can you possibly be in business to make money if you have a mindset that's against capitalism because it's terrible? I said,
Mm.
so I stopped and I said, but how do you define capitalism? Oh, it was just back to that original argument. It's all the greedy corporations.
Mm.
Well, if you're carrying that around, how in the world are you going to break through to create a business that's going to help you create the change that you want to do?
Mhm.
And it's like maybe we need to reframe that a little bit. Maybe it's not capitalism that you're so against. Maybe it's about the greed that you see in the world. And when we start getting more clear on what these issues really are,
Yeah.
then we can kind of open up and sit back and say, maybe there's a different way to move forward.
That would be nice. And that's one of the phrases that we use on this program. We're looking for those new ways of living because the old ways don't work. Just look around you, they don't work. Now, when I say that, I refer to a lot of the issues that we'll say, the challenges that we do face in our modern world here in the 21st century that have sprung up primarily since the Industrial Revolution. But it's not to say that it was all bad because there is sort of this evolutionary or progressive movement forward from one thing to the next. I mean, at one point, we were on horseback or we walked. And then all of a sudden, we built wagons with wheels and the horses pulled them. And then we got the automobile. And then the Wright brothers came along and said, hey, you know what? We may not have wings, but we can fly. And then we went to the moon and on and on and on. And it's just it's an evolutionary process to where you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's not going to work. It's just not going to work. Yes, there are challenges. Sure, if you want to label, the greed of individuals, I actually rephrased that one. It isn't greed. All right. There are all kinds of hoarding. That's just one of them. Okay. And there's a certain element of removal of judgment when you shift from calling it greed to calling it hoarding. They're just hoarding money. That's all they're doing. And there's no prohibition on how much you can earn. I myself, I'm not a wealthy individual, and that's fine. At least not in terms of what's in the bank. But I'm a very wealthy individual because I have so many different people in my life during this this moving situation, this buying a house and everything. The number of people that have offered congratulations when they find out about it, because again, in this day and age, especially here in California, it's the housing prices are ridiculous. Well, when I saw what we were approved for, I about fell out of my chair and was going, "You really that much? No, okay." And then we started taking a look at, okay, well, what would the monthly payment be, and how can we keep everything, where it's comfortable for us, but also comfortable in the sense that now and I'm going to go ahead and use the phrase that we own this house. When it closes, we will own this house. Now, yeah, but you owe X number of thousands of dollars to the bank. So that's just part of the process. All right. It's our home and we can do with it whatever we want. And that to me also springs forth to this aspect of community because we're moving into a neighborhood. It is not an urban type of a setup where you have tract housing, and you have streets and blocks and those kinds of things. This is up in the mountains. And it's going to be interesting to see who our neighbors are, who the people we meet up there. I'm looking forward to introducing both myself and my wife to this community. And I even found out there are a couple of radio stations up there. I was not that surprised. It's like, okay, well, we'll take a shot and see what happens. But I'm going to continue to be working for the station that I am now, doing it remotely and so forth. But it's a process. This is it. This is part of, again, I'll use the word again. It's part of our evolutionary process. I still ask the question, Julie, just because we can, does that mean we should? In
That's a
whatever.
really, it's a really good point, though, Richard, that you just brought up. When looking for this house, you and your wife were approved for this massive amount of money.
Yeah.
And I went through this. I had a staff of 50 when I was working for a corporation, and we went through a place where a number of my education staff, they were looking at houses and ready to establish families and to grow. And they were all approved for these massive amounts of money. And I stopped and I said, okay, that's great. but you still empty your cup. You get more information
Mm-hmm.
because it feels great that somebody's going to approve you for $1 million house.
Mm-hmm.
What are your monthly payments going to be? And
Exactly.
I watched as some researched this and went, wait a minute, we need to stay where we're going to be comfortable because we still want to travel and we've got kids and we want to make sure that there's leeway. And others went, oh my gosh, we've been approved for this almost $1 million house. We're going to move in. And I watched them being strapped, not being able to live life with breathing.
Yeah.
And 6 months later, the house is now on the market going, what were we thinking? That's an expensive lesson to learn. When you start with just empty your cup, let's not
Mm-hmm.
decide that, gee, we've just got all of this information. Let's get more.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the idea of living up in the mountains with a community and working at building the community today, with everything that's going on in the world, I can't really think of anything that is more important
Yeah.
than that. So I work with a lot of companies, organizations, individuals all over the world, and there's a lot happening in the world right now. But more than anything, we're looking at three major issues that are happening. Today, right now, we have a global shift in power that's taking place. And what does that mean? Well, the United States is getting out of certain markets, and as they do, other people and other countries are stepping into that markets. But when you have this shift of power, you also have a shift of ideals, a shift of morals, a shift of
Mm.
perception, how people, so it impacts all of us. We have this major shift in powers. We have the um, AI coming everywhere with
Yeah.
no one quite sure the benefits, the pros, the cons, can it do? Is it doing too much? And how do we harness this in a way that has some sort of integrity? And we're still maneuvering that. That's huge. And then the third thing that we have is the climate and what's happening environmentally to the earth. And part of this is how we see each other and the importance of building community
Mm.
and community everywhere so that we establish these places where people can feel safe, where people can feel seen, where people can feel heard, where we're willing to listen to people, even if we think that their views are different from ours, even if they're approaching things from different places. And it's approaching it all with what I call insatiable curiosity. We all need to be insatiably curious about each other, about ourselves, about the world, to try to understand, not just to take something at face value. When somebody says, oh, Richard, you and your wife, you qualify for a $3 million house, well, you say, wait a minute, I'm going to be insatiably curious. And I'm going to say, what does that mean in terms of, if I buy this, my monthly payments? What does this look like?
Mm.
And it's really it's a different way of looking at things. It's a way of being open and it's a way of connecting with other people. And
Yeah.
we need more of that. In terms of approaching something like AI, we need everybody at the table, the people that are supporting it, the people who hate it, and all the people in between. And we need to hear why and what's going on and what are all these scenarios that make us think. And even in terms of environmental issues, believe it or not, I work with a number of people who believe that climate change is a hoax.
Mm-hmm.
How do we work together? Because I'm insatiably curious. They might feel that climate change is a hoax, but we can agree that we want clean air. We can
Mm-hmm.
agree that we want a healthy environment for each other. So we work on those areas
Yeah.
where we can agree on things. And it's taking the time to find out why. And as a scientist, I learn a lot from these people. When someone says to me, but science has been wrong about this, and well, because they keep modeling, and that's the problem with models. Models are predictions. Um, Doesn't mean that it's going to come through and we keep getting more information. But when I hear from people who have issues with this, they're teaching me. And when I'm open to it, I'm learning, my gosh, as a scientist, we need to do a better job in how we're expressing information.
Yeah,
Uh,
I would agree. I would agree. We've got a long way to go. I myself, it's not that I do not believe that, I believe that the climates are changing. All right. But I don't talk about the science. I don't care about the science. What I put forth is we need to clean up our home, period. Whether climate change is or isn't a hoax is irrelevant. We need to clean up our home.
thank
And
you. That is the point. That
yeah,
is the important
yeah.
point.
I mean, we've made a, I mean, they're now, somebody shared with me an article they read that said that, these microplastics they're finding, like in the
Yeah.
fish, guess what? I heard words to the effect they're finding them in the bees.
Oh, they found microplastics in absolutely everything.
I
And
mean,
but
yeah,
here's the thing though. If we focus on the microplastics, they're in our blood, they're in our everything, and you go, "Oh my gosh, this is terrifying." And yes, it's something we need to do something about. But on the other hand, there's some new research where they're finding out how to get rid of microplastics.
yeah.
So that if we
Hmm.
empty our cup and we open, there are
There you go.
solutions. If we're looking at things back and forth in terms of the climate, there are solutions. The problem is people look at this just as a force. Stop turning on your lights because you're terrible. Stop eating meat. Stop
Yeah,
doing this. Stop
yeah,
doing, and it doesn't work.
yeah,
I'm old enough to remember when we first did the original recycling. Oh,
yeah.
and there was always one person if in the neighborhood
Hmm.
that would have a pickup truck and go and collect everybody's plastics. And once a month, they would make the trip out to the city dump or wherever that they could take it to get recycled. They would get maybe their 3 cents for everything, and they
Hmm.
would keep doing that. That was a lot of work. And how much was it recycling? We were able to up that recycling game when we started saying, Richard, you don't have to worry about just giving it to your neighbor
Yeah,
when you remember every 3 weeks and having everything just sit in your
yeah,
basement
yeah,
or to the side of the kitchen. We're going to give you a recycling bin and you can put it right outside and it's right there. Oh, that's easy. You say, I can do that. We can all do that.
yeah,
That's how we work on solutions that become easier.
yeah. I think,
And
yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
I think that those who complain about whether it is or isn't, or what have you, I would highly recommend, and just a suggestion, my perspective is that we need to, instead of complaining about the way it is, come up with a way to make it more efficient. Don't criticize it for, oh, well, it's doing this, it's doing that, it's not doing this, it's not doing that. I mean, I hear the arguments over, for example, solar panels and wind turbines and so forth. And it's like, well, then can you come up with a more efficient, a more effective, a safer way of doing this? And to those who say that I'll call it the progressive side. They want to do away with using petroleum. Period. I am not in favor of eliminating it 100% when it comes to, for example, the fuel that we put into our cars. It's gotten cleaner and cleaner, and the engines have gotten cleaner. I mean, I remember driving through Los Angeles as a kid with my family on a vacation, and the smog was everywhere. I've been driving through Los Angeles now since August. We've driven through it 3 times, and it's been crystal clear because changes were made. We didn't eliminate the internal combustion engine or the fuel. We cleaned it up. People made it more efficient. They made it better for us. And yes, there's room for improvement. But the last thing I want to set my butt in is an all electric car. When I hear this, when I read the stories about the lithium batteries and the dangers, you thought a Pinto was dangerous if you got hit from behind? How'd you like to be in one of those electric vehicles and the battery overheats? Not going to be a good thing.
No.
But again, that's even being made more efficient. It's being made safer and so on and so on and so on. So it's a process. The first things that I would venture that the first cars that came out, oh, they were awful as far as the exhaust.
You would think so, but let me chime in here to say the first cars that came out, let me tell you how much they cleaned up the environment. What did we use before cars? It was horses, horse and
Right.
buggies.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the streets were filled with horse poop
Right.
everywhere. There's disease. I think, Richard, one of the issues that we have is everybody's looking for a silver bullet.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Everyone's looking for this is the way to go. It's the only way to go. And again, they forget we're still learning and we need to learn. And we also need to make it okay that there are mistakes. That we go, well, we thought that this was okay, but it's not. So we're going to acknowledge that. We're going to pull back the reins and we're going to kind of head in a different direction. Yes, there's problems with solar. There's positives with solar. Electric cars, everybody thinks, oh, it's the silver bullet, and it's not. And we
Mm-mm.
also have to start mining for lithium, which is also impacting
Yeah.
the environment. Nothing is this silver bullet, which becomes why it becomes so important that we empty our cup and we start looking at things from different angles. Things that we
Yeah.
think are the solution
Yeah.
are not necessarily the solution. I'll give you an example. One of the big wastes that we have in landfills, food.
Mm.
And then you have people that will say, but there's enough food there, and there truly is to feed the entire world population. It's just a matter of how do we get it from A to B and what do we
Yeah.
do with it?
Yeah.
All of this waste. And I hear from a lot of the local grocery stores, people keep bashing them. Oh, they're wasting so much in terms of produce. And I actually said I need to do a little bit of research on this. And I found a number of our big grocery chains were actually taking their produce and like here where I live, they give it to a local pig farm that it becomes food and they have their own recycling facilities so that they're making use of it. There is another group that's starting, and this is catching on across the country, that what about if we take the food, if you're a restaurant, you're a grocery store, whatever, you have certain food at the end of the day, what if we make it available at a discounted price? People can come and they can buy it. Well, it sounds like a great idea, and on a certain level, it works. But what's happened in some places, some of the restaurants, their foods have become so popular in terms of people paying a cheaper price to get the food that now the restaurants are making more food,
Mm.
make sure that they have more to accommodate customers at the end of the day. So they're actually creating more waste.
Mm.
So it comes back to saying we need to sit down and start looking at problems differently.
Yeah.
Uh, and like I said, companies do this a lot, and it's not very transparent with the public. I would love to see this explained more. There's a famous example of a company that owned apartment buildings, and there was one specific building that was bigger than the others that people complained about how long it took the elevators to go up and down.
Mm.
So the company immediately starts researching how do we make the elevators go faster? We want to keep people happy. And they're like looking at putting millions of dollars into this. And when they stopped and they hired some consultants and some coaches, you come in from outside and you go, what really is the issue here? The issue is people were just bored waiting for the elevators. And we just started experimenting back and forth. And they put mirrors at the sides of the elevators. Well, what happens when there's a mirror at the side of the elevator? You're going home, you're going for a date, you're going to work, you check yourself. It gives you something to do. I'm checking myself. Do I have food in my teeth? Do I look okay? Are my pants pulled down or up or whatever they're supposed to be? And people stop complaining. And it was just a matter of putting the mirrors at the side of elevators. And it was that
Mm.
perception that, oh, I guess they did something because the elevators don't seem to take as long as they did before. So sometimes what we think are the issues aren't always the issues. I work in terms of leadership with a concept that we call systems thinking, where it's if you think of a tip of an iceberg, this is what we see at the top of the iceberg, and this can be used for anything when you're dealing with racism, when you're dealing with problems, world problems, issues. This is what we see at the surface. But if you go down and dig deeper, what is the root of the problem? Where is this coming from? And then somewhere between that root of the problem and the top of the mountain, there are what we call leverage points. And you go, wait a minute, maybe it would help if I could help educate people. And the example in racism, and one of the people I actually wrote about in my book, where does something like racism or I hate these people or I hate that people, cultural, well, a lot of it came from at the root fear. People only know so much about these people that they're dealing with. And Ronnie Abergel is a gentleman who lives in Copenhagen, Denmark. And he came up with the idea of what we call human library. What if instead of checking a book out of a library, you could check a person out? You could
Mm.
say, you're everything that I think that I hate. I'm a racist. I hate people from your country. I hate people of this religion or whatever. What if you could check that person out and instead of dealing with the hate, you could approach this with your insatiable curiosity to say, I heard that, all the people from your country are born with horns or have this terrible practice that, you kill your firstborn baby, da, 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 da. And to listen to a human being say, no, this is what we think. This is how we view the world. And to go, so what I've just done is, first of all, we've gotten rid of some of those deep-rooted fears. And it's not a matter of trying to change people's opinion. And I think that's one of the issues when we start discussing things or arguing back and forth. We're always trying to change people. You have to think exactly like I do. We don't have to work at changing people's opinions. What we want to do is open them up to understanding. You get to
Mm.
keep your viewpoint, you get to keep your opinion, but at least now you're going to walk away with understanding why someone else's perspective is different. Oh, maybe if I had grown up under the circumstances that this person had grown up, maybe I would feel the same way.
Mm. Yeah. It's interesting that we do a lot of different things, but we don't quite take the full step. Um, we just don't take the full step, you know?
It's it's that action. And I think part of this is because people get used to feeling stuck. I've been trying to find a job. I just dealt with this with a client. I've been trying to find a job for 8 months and I keep sending in resumes and nobody is interviewing me. Nobody is doing blank, blank, blank. And I said, now think about this. You're doing the same thing over and over and over again, and you think something is going to change.
Yeah.
The thing that has to change has to be you. And the other problem that we run into is everybody thinks that there's just one answer to how we have to change, and that answer is different for each and every one of us.
Yeah.
And so it's like, let's come up with new strategies, but we get to the point where we get used to being stuck. It feels comfortable. Or I'll have clients that say, I have tried everything and that's it. There is no way to move forward. Well, if you've convinced yourself like that, your cup is overflowing and there is no way to bring in new information. You got to empty the cup, and now let's look at it from a completely different perspective. And we find this in companies a lot. One of the big issues right now is everybody is supposed to go back to work and be in the office. There are pros and there are cons to that. So here you have these managers or leaders that, oh, they read everything in Fortune magazine and Business Inc. and this one. So they all know you can't tell them anything. And company A has a great story in one of these online magazines that says, "Oh, this was the problem. People didn't want to come back to work because we found we have a huge population of females and even the males that needed daycare. They don't know what to do with daycare. So, oh, we partnered with daycare, and now we've got a daycare facility next to our company. It solved all our problems. That was great. So now here comes someone, the manager, that says, I know everything and I'm on top of everything. We're having problems with getting people back to our office to work. So obviously this is the problem. So we need to do the daycare. Now they build a daycare facility right next to where they are. They encourage somebody to come in. And it turns out that they've got people who tend to be single. They're not married. They have no need for daycare, but they didn't do the work. They forgot to be insatiably curious. They forgot to dig deep into their own arsenal and say, what's going on here? Because it is not just one-stop shopping where it's the same answer will work across the board. We each have to do the work to find our own path to move forward.
Yeah, we do. And it's very important that we begin that process. It's along the same lines of finding one's life's purpose, if you will. And it's to me fascinating how it's unfortunate on one side, and maybe there's judgment there on my part. Sorry about that, folks. That people, don't realize that a lot of what they are doing is part of their life's purpose, but they're not. It's like they're sleepwalking through it. They're not consciously aware that what they're doing is important in the grand scheme of things. And then there are others who they don't think that what they're doing is important, and maybe it isn't, but that's something you have to evaluate for yourself. You have to determine, is this shall we say fulfilling me, and there's nothing wrong with that. Am I happy doing what I'm doing overall? Maybe there are little parts of it that I'm not real thrilled with, but overall I love what I do, and hopefully many more people are finding that. And then you can begin that process of emptying your cup and finding a new way. I mean, I've heard this many times. Sometimes I'm going to sell the house and I'm going to move. I'm going to move over here. Or I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to go over here and I'm going to work there. This relationship is just, we can either go to counseling, therapy, or what have you. We can work it out and make it work, or maybe it's time for us to go our own separate ways. Many of us have done that. I've done it once and have no plans on ever doing it again. It is not fun. So I have made my commitment to my wife that, hey, we're going to work it out no matter what it is. And who knows? I hope it never happens that we ever get to that spot where we say, well, we tried. We've been through way too much at this point that to be honest with you, I don't think there's really much of anything left for us to say, I'm done. I just don't see it.
But what you bring up, Richard, is really important. It's a commitment. It's a commitment to growth. It's a commitment to say, I'm going to find out. I've had it with my house. I'm just ready to move instead of just selling the house and moving. And I've seen people do this and move across the world. And the problem is you take yourself with you. So the same issues that you had there, now you have there. Why do you want to move? What are you looking to get out of this? It's the same thing that we look at for when I go into work with a client. What's our strategy? But first of all, where are you trying to get and why? And what does success look like? Well, these are the issues with this house. This is what I'm looking to change. It's a location, it's a this, it's, whatever that is. Once we know that, first of all, you're going to find the better house to suit the needs that you're trying to fulfill. You're going to pivot and you're going to be happier. instead of
Yeah.
saying, I've just had this because I've lived in this place for 15 years. It's enough. I don't care where it is. Great. You don't care where it is. You're going to end up with a whole slew of new problems.
Yeah. Yeah. And the universe has an interesting way. I mean, I remember the first move that my wife and I made here to Santa Barbara. Things unfolded the way they did in February and March of 2006. And the next thing you knew, the universe is saying, okay, time for you guys to move from here. And we had lots of reasons, personal reasons for moving. Number one for me was the heat. Didn't want to stay in Phoenix anymore. But we've been here for 19 and a half years in Santa Barbara. And we've been talking about it. My wife has wanted to move. I mean, yes, she does. No, she doesn't. In that she grew up on this mountain. She was born and raised here. So there's a dichotomy, a struggle. But I told her, I says, as far as the moving part, I want to move, but I am waiting for the universe to make a way. Now, I didn't think it was going to be this way, but this is the way the universe chose, and here we are. And that's okay. And I think that that's one of the other aspects of it that a lot of folks don't fully understand is that sometimes, if you push, you end up almost along the lines of what you just said about someone saying, I just want to move and I don't care where it is. If you push, you end up, you know, maybe going in a direction that pushes you away from the direction that the universe had for you. Not to say that you won't learn some valuable lessons along the way, sure. So it's a very interesting situation that we all as human beings find ourselves in, and change is again that constant in the universe. But it also comes down to choices that we make and that we've made in the past that have brought us where we are, and what choices are we going to make today? They're going to put us where we will be in the future, and that's
And
what my
increasing that awareness,
and in,
increasing that awareness. What do we like? What don't we like? There is a whole generation of people that are out there that are going to jobs or working at home that aren't very invested in it. They just want to put in their time, make their money, and move on. But move on to what?
hmm
It's worth taking the time to say, what is it? What is it? Like you said, what is your purpose? And your purpose can change, but what makes you happy? And what makes you feel fulfilled? And there's not just one book that you could read that says, oh, this is happiness for everybody. We each find happiness in different ways. There are things that are important to each of us that are different. And when we begin, again, being insatiably curious instead of saying, oh, I've tried everything and I know, and this is, and we're just bashing our heads against the door. Um, when we're curious instead, and we say, there are different ways to go about this, or let me find out, why don't I like this?
yeah,
What
yeah,
is it? Maybe it's just this one small part. Maybe I kind of like the rest of it. How do I feel about, and I can't tell you how many people go through this life, they don't even know how they feel. How do you feel about this? I don't know. I didn't think about this. What makes you happy? I don't know. Let me think about this. We forget to ask these questions.
mm-hmm.
I'll sit down in groups, coaching groups with a whole group. Tell me off the top of your head what makes you happy. And in any group of 10 people, maybe there's two that say, this makes me happy and this makes me happy. And everyone else is like, I don't know. I have to think about it. Well, how can we be happy if we don't know what's going to make us happy?
Yeah,
Are you successful? You know,
mhm,
what does success mean to you? If I ask you, Richard, are you successful? You're going to answer me, yes. I am
mm-hmm.
very successful. I do what I love to do. I have a wonderful life. We're moving, we're doing these exciting adventures. That's what success looks like for you. For someone else who has their relationship there, wherever they are in their life, what does success look like to them? And
Yeah,
have they achieved it? Are they to achieve it? And to understand that, again, it's not one definition of success. We live in a culture that tells us success is, I'm not a big car person. So if you say to me, oh, I'm driving, this Jaguar, this Mercedes, or whatever, I'm looking for something that's going to get me from point A to point B. That's not something that's on my list of what makes me happy or how I quantify success, but for the person who does, then yes, that's what they need to be spending their money on.
Yeah, yeah. And you need to have that focus, that awareness, and stay focused. And I will say that the process that we've been going through, obviously with this move, has been extraordinary. I mean, we've been pulled in so many different directions, and it seems like it's taking forever. Well, the reality is that it isn't. Now, granted, the first house I bought, we closed in 30 days. From the day we saw it, we closed in 30 days. And it was September 1st to September 30th of 1993. And the process was much different back then. But this one started on the 10th of August. And as you and I are conversing, we're like in the second week of October of 2025. It's taking as long as it takes, and it's not forever. I remember when I went in for gallbladder surgery to have it removed, and I thought about it. I wasn't in a lot of pain or anything, but I said to myself, it says, you're going to be on the other side of this before you know it. And I was. And the same thing here. We're going to be living there and making it our space and all of that stuff before we know it. And it's going to be a wonderful thing. So we're real excited about that aspect of it. We're talking with Julie Wignall, and we're talking about the extraordinaryfireflies.com is the website. Extraordinaryfireflies.com is the website. We certainly hope you'll go there to find out more about her book as well. We'll talk about that in just a moment as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, Reverend Dr. D, along with Julie Wignall. I want to thank you so much for being a part of what we're doing here. Talk to us a little bit about this book that you have, The Extraordinary Power of Fireflies.
The extraordinary power of fireflies is my metaphor to talk about the power that each one of us has inside of us to be happy, to reach that success of however we define it for ourselves, to shine our light, just like a firefly, to shine our light brightly in the world. But here's the trick. One firefly, one little firefly that someone sees in a backyard or by a stream is absolutely magical, and it lights up the world and it changes it. And that's just like each human being, whether it's being kind to somebody in the grocery store or working in a field that you're looking to transform the world in a different way. We each have the power to make the world a better place. The cover of my book is actually a composite of pictures from fireflies. There are two places in the world where we have what we call synchronous fireflies. One of them is right here in the United States in the Smoky Mountains, and the other is in Malaysia. And these are places where fireflies light up the forest in unison. And it's magical. The entire forest just absolutely glows with light. That's what happens when we take our light and we start meeting other people who are shining their light, and we start working together in collectives, in community, where we care for each other, we provide a safe space for each other to be who we are. And again, not making each other change, where we accept each other exactly who we are, where we know that we're all, each and every one of us, enough, being just who and what we are. And when we do that and we gather in groups and we build communities, we light up forests and we light up all the darkness in the world. And a lot of people are very concerned about things that are happening in the world and on the planet, and it can be very scary. But fireflies, you don't see them when it's light during the day. Fireflies shine their best when it's dark. And that's why we're here. That's what we're here for, is to gather, to shine brightly, to be happy, and to find new ways and new solutions to outdated beliefs, outdated systems, and things that don't work.
That's another very interesting point, especially when you're talking about things that don't work. I've been seeing a lot of different videos about the way things are done in other parts of the world, and they're done really well. I was watching one about the roads in Europe, for example, and how they took from Roman road building the technique that allowed the roads that they have to last upwards of 500 years. Here in the United States, we build roads that are lucky to last a year. And I sit here and think the arrogance of Americans to think that we have all the answers and we can't learn from others. And there are those who would say, well, but Richard, it's quite possible if you want to use the building of the roads like in Europe versus the United States. How much is it costing them to go to the lengths that they go to the depths that they go to build these roads that last for 500 years? It could be $1 billion a mile. All right. So it's $1 billion a mile. If it lasts 500 years, don't you think it's worth the investment? That's just an example. Just an example.
It's a wonderful example. I had a mentor who used to always say the number one issue that faces the world is not any of these health issues. It's myopia. It's short-sightedness.
Mhm.
It's not stepping back and looking at the bigger picture and understanding that in the long run, spending that whatever you need to spend that's going to make sure that it's going to last, that makes sure it's going to be healthy, that's a worthwhile investment.
Absolutely. Julie Wignall is my guest. Extraordinary Power of Fireflies is her book. Extraordinaryfireflies.com is her website. We hope that you will go there, find out more about the work that she is doing. And it's always nice to have returning guests on the program to talk about what we've been talking about today predominantly is emptying your cup, and we need to do that from time to time. Somebody said to us, and this was going back, I'm going to say late August. And we hit the wall, as it were. Okay, we hit the wall. And we crashed on the bed holding hands, and we're laying there, and I called someone to try to get some, I don't know, some inspiration, encouragement. I can't remember. And they basically said, maybe the universe is telling you to just leave everything and go. Well, at that time, we didn't have the house. I mean, it was not an option. There was no place to go. And there was a part of me that was thinking, and we even voiced this to each other, that we both wanted to get in the car with the cats and just go. Just go. Leave everything behind and just go. Now, I know there are people that do that. They reach that point where they say, there's nothing in that dwelling that I absolutely have to have. Nothing. And they just take off. They hit the road. I know that there are certain things that are in this dwelling that we're leaving that we want to take with us, and it's obvious by the trailer that's almost full and the truck that's nearly full and so forth. But at the same time, we're the only species on the planet that does this, that collects all of these things. Now, someone say, well, yeah, but no, I could list you this and this. Yeah, but they don't do it and then collect more and more and more and more. And then they drag it all over, hill and dale. We're the only ones that do that. And, the stuff that we collect is not us. We think that it's important. We think that without it, we'll die, But we didn't have it when we came to this planet, i.e. through our parents, through our mothers. We didn't have any of this stuff. And guess what? We can't take any of it with us when we leave. I mean, as far as I know, my dad didn't take anything with him. He didn't even take his body. Okay? So I think that's a real important lesson too, in terms of this whole aspect of emptying your cup. And I told my wife, I says, let's do this when we get to our new home. We have this enormous living room, dining room, and it's just one big room, right? Wood floors and so forth. I said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to unload everything, and everything with a few exceptions is going into the living room. We're just going to stack the boxes and everything goes there. Then we will open up one box and we'll go through it and we will decide maybe we didn't need to bring this. That's leaving the house. And we've already pared down a lot, but there's nothing wrong with even paring down more as you um, move in to your new space. And that's what we're going to do
And
is
no,
just
and you know what's really nice for people who aren't even moving, and I do
right.
this. I'm in the process of doing this right now, where you take everything out of a room, everything, and
Yeah.
pretend that you're moving into it as a place that's new.
Oh,
And
wow.
start looking and saying, "Do I need this? Do I want this? Um, and do I want to give it away? Do I want to sell it? Do I want to thrift it?" And it gives you a new place, even if you can't afford to move, even if you're not in a position to change your location, but you're starting new and you're doing it on an internal level. What
Hmm.
do I want in this room? Take out the chairs, take out the tables. Do I want the tables in exactly the same place? A lot of things we do by rote. And the exciting part, for someone like you, when you get to move, you're putting things in new places. And I think that part of the thrill that we get in doing that is we're aware. It makes you very aware. Where is the stove? Where am I getting my coffee? Um, we have a thing in my house where I'll change that every 6 months. I'll go and I'll make coffee without even thinking about it. It's always in the same place. And it's amazing. I move it from one counter in the kitchen to another counter in the kitchen. And sure enough, I have at least 4 mornings that I get up in the morning and I stand there and I go, oh, where did the coffee pot go? And it's like, oh my gosh, I haven't been aware.
Yeah.
What can I do to kind of wake myself up? And
Mm.
even just that exercise of taking everything out of the room, and even if you keep every single thing that you have, you're looking at it, you're touching it, you're feeling it, you're remembering why it's important to you.
Yeah.
And you look at the room with new eyes when you get back into the room.
Yeah. I mean, this is an extraordinary time for us, an extraordinary process. We have been using the phrases that were actually given to us by a good friend of mine. He says, you guys need a fresh start, a fresh start. Now, I'm not quitting my job, but because I'm fortunate that I'm going to be able to work remotely, and so forth. But it's a time, a real time of reflection. You know, when they talk in astrology terms about certain planets like Mercury and retrograde kind of thing, and people
Yeah.
throw up their hands and they pull out their hair like, oh my God, no. Well, one of my dear friends who is an astrologer says that's not what Mercury in retrograde means, and what really you need to be doing when that is sort of, so to speak, declared that Mercury is in retrograde or whatever planet. That's the time for self reflection,
Mhm.
to take a look at and maybe go through and get rid of some things, not necessarily externally, but internally, like some of the old beliefs that don't work for you anymore. That's part of emptying your cup too, isn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we should all be going through that throughout our lives. What belief systems have we held on to that just don't work well for us
Yeah.
anymore? And and you mentioned that I have a very dear friend who's an astrologer who will often say this is what you need to look at because people are attracted to different things where they'll go, this is what's happening astrologically, this is why this is what you want to clear up. But on a bigger scale, what this is really all about, it's about growth, and
Hmm.
it's about evolving as human beings. And the same things that worked for us when we were 10 years old or 20 years old don't work when you're 30 or 40. And it's not the age. We have this thing about age
Yeah.
and ageism. It's not the age, it's the experience. And we need to be able to start looking at things. No, I've had different experiences now that I'm 20 and different experiences now that I am 30 that have enriched me, that have made me grow, that I'm now going to look at things a little bit different.
Yeah.
And I'm going to empty my cup. I'm going to get rid of some of these things that don't serve me anymore in terms of how I'm going to work. Um, I look at this, I have a number of clients where I'll say, let's look at the people you surround yourself with. Well, I grew up with these people.
Hmm.
What kind of bullies during grade school and then high school? But I mean, this is the group that I know. I grew up with them. Well, are they supportive? And do they see you for you? And even if you're not comfortable saying this group isn't going to work for me, then it's time to at least expand your group and grow it bigger so that you're bringing in people who support more of what you do and who see you for who you are and who listen to what you have to say and make you feel that you're important because you are.
Yeah. Julie Wignall and the Extraordinary Power of Fireflies. Why did that have a problem there? Extraordinary Power of Fireflies. There we go. That's the book, and Extraordinary Fireflies is the website. That's a .com at the end of that. Extraordinaryfireflies.com. There we go. And you're listening to Tell Me Your Story. I'm Reverend Dr. D. Richard Dugan, along with Julie Wignall. And Julie, this has been a lot of fun to go through this process. It's helpful, certainly for me and my wife, in terms of what we're going through right now. But in general, over the course of time, we're going to do it again, I'm sure. I don't necessarily mean move, but we're going to do that process of emptying our cup. And we'll do that when we move into this new place. And maybe in a year or two, we'll do the same thing. We'll go through some of the things that we thought we wanted. And the beautiful thing about it is we have so much more room in this new place that we'll be able to see how much we really have. I mean, like I said, it's really extraordinary how we have filled these vehicles up with all of our worldly possessions. We've even put some of them in storage that we don't need right now. So we'll come back for them and decide, all right, do we really need to haul these 200 miles across California? Or um, do we want to give them away and start fresh with replacing what's in storage with something else that we like better, or maybe not replacing it at all, just letting these things go, and we'll get there. We'll see what happens. But I thank you so much for being a part of helping us to empty our cup here as we learn more about that here on the program. And I really appreciate your being a part of the work we're doing here.
Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure.
And we'll have you back, okay? Because I know you put out regular newsletters and what have you, and we'll maybe jump on another one of the topics that you might have as we continue here on the program. I'm going to ask you those three questions that I ask all of my guests that I've already asked you the first time, but sometimes the answers change. But we'll get to that. But first, I want to thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story. New paradigms for a new world, giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We're here Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and we're also Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m., streaming live at all those times at richarddugan.com. We are on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, Blueberry, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and we're on YouTube where you can watch these conversations. We hope that you will subscribe as well as click notification. I have a book. It's called Choices, 5 Steps for Life. It's available at Amazon.com. And I also ask that if you can leave us a tip, we'd be greatly appreciative. The tip jar is called PayPal. And on the homepage of richarddugan.com, there are links to Amazon for the book Choices, 5 Steps for Life, and to the tip jar for PayPal. So we hope that you'll avail yourselves of those. And to those of you who have helped and will help, thank you, thank you, thank you. And finally, we hope that you'll take time during this decade of perfect vision, the 2020s, to go within and listen to that still small voice. And with all that being said, we move into our final 3 questions for our very special guest. And the first of those is, who is Julie Wignall?
Julie Wignall is a being of light that is here to light up the planet just as everyone else is in our own special way.
What is it that gets you up in the morning?
Living all aspects of being human, the positives, the negatives, the feeling, everything that there is. Things take longer always, I say, than we expect, but then they happen faster and life goes by fast. What gets me up in the morning is being a part of an amazing world.
And finally, what was your best day?
My very best day was actually today. Being here today, every day is my best day, for better or for worse, because there's something that I gain from it.
Hmm. Well, thank you again. We've gained a great deal from you, and we really appreciate your being a part of Tell Me Your Story. And we thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story. And until our next broadcast, podcast, video cast, love to lol. Jeanette, I'm still listening. Dad, continue to be happy because I am. Smokey, I will see you on the other side. Mike, thanks for letting me be in your life and you being in mine. And to my dear friend Zorro, aho, aho.